Hey everybody, this is Tracy with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we're here to recap Being Mary Jane Season 4, Episode 5, which was titled Getting Served. So Tuesday's episode must have been dedicated to all the women who allow their broke baby daddies and other trifling men back into their lives just in time for income tax season. And also, is Being Mary Jane moving away from the upwardly mobile single females and trying to appease a younger, less educated slash experienced demographic? And although I enjoyed the life lessons that were taught in this episode, I must say it was, I don't want to say it was boring, but I didn't like the direction that the show seems to be going, and I hope that they can get back on track real soon. So the show opens with Niecy and her friends, and they're going to an upscale club where she has paid for a VIP section. And so when her friends, ask her, what's the big occasion, she lets them know that they're celebrating being single mothers and holding it down and, taking care of business, even though the men in their lives are not that good. And so Niecy shares with them that, she's not looking for a man, that her and Dante are back together and she wants to focus her attention on building their relationship. And her friends are looking at her like, girl, please, like, don't be a fool for Dante. You know he is full of crap and just using you. But she just wants to believe that Dante is really back for the right reasons. And so as they're sitting there talking, a group of girls come over and ask if they can join them in the VIP section. And so Niecy tells them no, that they can't. And then immediately the conversation goes left. And one of the girls calls Niecy a hoe. And then they went to calling each other bitches and skanks and just total inappropriate behavior. And then the girl, she starts questioning Niecy's parenting skills and brings up the fact that Niecy was the one that was tasered by the police. And then she starts saying that Niecy is wasting the money, that she got in the settlement. And next thing I know, a fight breaks out. Niecy pulls the girl wig off, and then her and her friends get kicked out of the club. And so as the bouncer is like pulling them out of the club, and she's asking, why are we the ones being asked to leave when she was the one that confronted us in our VIP section? And then all of a sudden she looks around and she realizes that all these people are videotaping them. And it was so funny because she still had the girl's wig in her hand. And the girl, the bouncer's like holding the girl back, and she's there with her wig cap on. And I'm just like, okay, what kind of foolishness is this? So, Niecy realized she probably has made a mistake. And so, she leaves the club and she goes home. The day after, Niecy sees that the video has gone viral and she's being attacked on social media. People saying that, it's her nasty attitude is the reason that the police tased her and that she deserved to be tased and she shouldn't have gotten the settlement. And so she can't resist and she starts to comment, respond to some of the comments that were being made about her on social media. So then Tavion walks in and he wants to go to Dante's house because he has some toy car, a toy truck or something that he can't find. And he thinks that he left it over at Dante's house the last time they were there. So Niecy tells him, that she's having trouble reaching Dante, but Travion doesn't care. He wants his toy. So then Niecy tries to contact Dante again, but of course he's not answering her calls or returning her text messages. So then we have Mama Helen. She's taking up Deja. Remember, Deja is Patrick's youngest daughter and Niecy's sister. And so she's trying to get Deja into this organization called Jack and Jane, which I'm assuming is a play on Jack and Jill. And so they're at the meeting and she tells Deja to go over and mingle with some of the other girls her age. And so when Deja goes over, the girls ask her if she's Niecy's little sister, and she says yes. And so then they start playing the videos for her. And I'm trying to figure out, like, why do these little 19-year-olds have cell phones? And even if they have phones, why are they allowed to be on the internet and going through social media? And I'm thinking, parents, y'all need to get y'all kids in check because this is why they are out of hand. So while Deja's over with the girls, Helen goes over and she approaches, I guess, the lady that's the head of the group. And so the lady's like, well, I'm surprised that you're here. And Helen's like, well, why wouldn't I be here? And then she brings up the video, and Helen has no idea what she's talking about. So the lady calls her daughter over, who's a teenager, and asks the daughter to show Helen the video. And so she hands Helen her phone, and Helen's looking at the video, and I'm just like, you could tell she's totally embarrassed by Niecy's behavior, but she's not going to lose her cool in front of, all these people. So Helen wastes no time getting home to confront Niecy, and she's not even listening for all the excuses Niecy's giving for why, she was carrying on like a fool in this club. And Helen pretty much tells her that no matter how hard she tries with Niecy and tries to believe in her, she always finds a way to disappoint them. And so, of course, that makes Niecy feel bad because she already feels like she doesn't have a voice and nobody believes in her. So then Dante finally responds to her text, and they decide to meet up. She's talking about, when are you going to find time for us? Travion misses you. He wants to spend time with you, and all of this stuff. But Dante isn't hearing it, and he gives her the car and tells her that he has to get going and get back to work. So when she returns home, she's served with papers. And it turns out that she's violated the terms of her settlement when she responded to the people on social media, who was questioning, whether or not she deserved to get tased. Inside, Helen gets a call, from the lady who was over the Jack and Jane program, and she's basically insinuating that she doesn't think it's a good time for Deja to be trying to get into the organization, and that Helen needs to focus on her family and what's going on with Niecy. So when she hangs up the phone, she tells Paul Sr. about the call and says that she feels like their family is never going to stop being judged for the mistakes of their children. And he isn't really feeling, the whole club thing anyway, and basically asks her, is it really that important for Deja to be in the organization? And she tells him, yes, that it is, because, it's like it's a sisterhood, for African American women, and that you always need to have these support systems in place. So Niecy comes in and she lets her dad and grandparents know that she has to repay the money for the settlement because of the comments that she made on social media. And so they're like, well, we can fight this, but she says, she doesn't want to fight it. She has to pay the money back. And so Patrick says to her, well, just give the money back then. And she lets him know that she spent some of the money. And so he's like, well, how much money could you have spent? What did you spend the money on? So she starts talking about she done made a down payment on a breast reduction or breast lift or something. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to tell y'all what I'm thinking when she said that. But then she said, she's loaned her friends money, and, Patrick is like, okay, well, that's not a lot of money. What is the issue? What else did you spend the money on? So she finally has to break down and say that she gave Dante that money to buy that car. And Patrick is like, we're going to get that car, and we're going to get that car right now. So he is like in a rage and upset that she would be so crazy as to buy this boy a car when he isn't thinking about her. So when they get to Dante's house, I'm not sure why Niecy brought her kids with her to go on this little adventure with her dad to get that car. But then she also gets out of the car and gets the kids, and then Patrick is like, well, I'm going to wait, till you go to the door. And then she says, no, she got it, and that he can leave, and he left. So she gets to the door, and Dante isn't answering the door. So as she's about to go, I think she was going to walk around to the back of the house or something to see if the car was there, when the car pulls up, and why, was there another woman driving that car? And not only was she driving the car, but Dante wasn't in the car with her. So, Niecy knew who the girl was, and it turns out to be Amika, and she has a little boy from Dante also. And so instead of, the scene getting really hood, because y'all know it was in the real world, in the real hood. If another woman pulled up in a woman's car, it would have been on and popping, and they would have been fighting. But instead, Niecy and the girl have a heart-to-heart conversation about Dante and how he's no good, and how, they've got to, because their kids are siblings, they've got to work together and make sure that the kids grow up knowing each other. And I thought that was really nice of them, and a good play on how that scene could have turned out. And then I was really concerned about the Amika girl, because as she was talking, she sounded really down and depressed about the situation, like she just wants to escape it all. And I think what they were showing in that moment was the difference between being a single mom and having a strong support system, and being a single mom and having to do it all on your own, and just being overwhelmed by the whole situation. So then Nisi, tells Amika that she would like for the kids to start having play dates, and for them to support one another better, because they can't rely on Dante. So after Amika and her son, Marquise, I think his name was, get into their Uber and leave, Travion wants to know why Marquise can't be his brother, and why Dante can't be his dad. And so then Nisi's trying to explain to him that it doesn't work that way. And I was just thinking, oh, like that's so horrible, because when your kids have siblings, so let me see if I can get this right. So when your kids have siblings from other people, but then you have kids that are not those kids' siblings, it has to be really hard and difficult. So basically, when the father of your child is not in their life, and then you have another child whose father has babies all over the place, it just causes a lot of confusion. And I liked how they brought that up in the show, and just how crazy it is, and how it really impacts the kids in a negative way, and causes other internal issues within the structure of the family. Then we have another touching scene where Patrick, when he returns back home after dropping Nisi off at Dante's house, he goes in to talk with his dad. And so they have like a heart-to-heart talk about parenting. And I thought it was just good to see two strong Black men sitting down talking and having this conversation, and just one dad passing down the knowledge to the other dad so that he can be a good parent. But overall they're both good parents, but they have different struggles, and it was just a good scene to see them coming together. When Nisi returns home from retrieving the car from Dante's house, Mary Jane calls, and you'll see how Nisi is doing, and Nisi just totally breaks down, and she's really emotional. And I was really glad that Mary Jane, kept it positive and didn't beat her down more than she was already feeling, beat down for messing up the way she had. And as my dad would say, she simply told Nisi that next time, do better. So then Helen goes back to the Pumpus Heifers at the Jack and Jane little committee party thing going on that they had. And so the ringleader still has her nose up in the air, and is asking Helen, why did she come back? Why did she bring Deja? They're not going to let Deja in. And so Helen says, well, there's something I need to get off my chest. And so she basically tells them that, they're all human. They all have struggles. And if she was to go around the room, she could find things that were wrong about all the women that were there. So how could they judge her? And so after she gives her little speech and says that she's going to leave it, they don't want her and Deja to be there. One of the lady comes over and says that that Helen is telling the truth, and that her and her husband are about to file bankruptcy because they've spent all their money trying to bail their kids out of messes, to keep everybody else from knowing that they are screw-ups. And then another lady comes over and lets them know that her and her husband are about to get a divorce. So after coming clean and proving her point that none of them are perfect, the women decide to let Deja in after all. Then we have a scene where Dante finally realizes that his car is gone, and he starts blowing up Nisi's phone. And so, she's getting ready to go meet him, and Patrick, looks at her and tells her, that this is a lesson in how, to follow your gut. And then, Nisi's like, what do you mean? And he's telling her, your gut, is your instincts. And if it's telling you that something's wrong or that you shouldn't be doing something, you should listen to it, and it'll save you a lot of trouble. So then Nisi says she understands, and she goes outside to meet Dante. And so Dante has come over there on his bicycle. And I'm just like, why y'all had to do him like that? Why he couldn't catch an Uber over to Nisi's house? Why did he have to come on the bicycle? But Niecy basically goes off on him and tells him that she knows that he's just using her. He doesn't want her, and that it's never going to work out for them, and for him to just get on his bicycle and going on about his business. And so then he's like, steady trying to argue with her and telling her, he needs the car to get to work and all of this other bull crap. But Niecy's not having it, and so she finally tells him that she had to give all the money back. And then he was like, well, what do you mean you had to give the money back? And she says, I had to give it back. The money's gone. It's over with. Leave and don't come back unless you're coming, to pick up Isabel or to pay some child support. Other than that, I don't want to see you or hear from you. And I was like, finally, Niecy, come on, girl, get it together. Now let's move over to New York to catch up with Mary Jane and what's been going on with her while this drama was taking place with Niecy. So Mary Jane and PJ, whose real name is Paul, after the father. And I don't know why the Paul was jumping out at me at this episode. Whether they have always called them Paul in previous seasons or if this was the first time. But anyways, Paul Sr. and PJ is Paul Jr. And so they're having dinner and they are talking about missing home. Well, Mary Jane is talking about missing home. PJ said he doesn't miss home because nothing good happened there. That he was doing, selling drugs, spinning signs on street corners trying to make money. So he's not trying to go back to Atlanta. And we also learned that Lee is on tour. And so Mary Jane is feeling really lonely. And so PJ suggests that she just go home for a visit. So then these two decide that they're going to buy a smoker and try to grill like their dad for the Super Bowl. So, also earlier in the show, the dad had gone to the store and bought ribs and collard greens and all this stuff that he was going to make on the day that the Super Bowl was coming on. So then PJ lets Mary Jane know that Olivia's daughter wants an internship on the Great Day show and she needs Mary Jane's help. And then Mary Jane's like, we have like 10,000 people apply for internships and I think they only give out like 5 of them, but she says that she'll do what she can to help. And then the two are also there was a scene where they were trying to replicate their father's barbecue sauce, but they can't seem to get it right. And during that scene, Niecy texts Mary Jane to tell her, about Patrick was going off about her buying that car for Dante and that he was in full meltdown mode. So as she's telling PJ about the text, the phone rings and it's Patrick on the phone. And so, she talks to Patrick for a second and then she gives the phone over to PJ. So then PJ's looking at her like, well, why did you give the phone to me? And she's just like, no, I don't want to get involved because I'm thinking that she was thinking that Patrick was calling so that she would give them the money to make up the difference and pay back the settlement money. And so PJ tells Patrick that Mary Jane had left and she had to go run to the store. So then they ended their call. So then Mary Jane lets PJ know that she talked to Niecy and that, she feels real bad that she wasn't there to help Niecy. And she kind of wished that she had gone home when Niecy first got the settlement because then she would have made her put the money, in the trust fund like she was supposed to and be a little bit more responsible with everything. And so PJ lets her know that not going home was the best thing that she could have done because, things just would have gotten blown, all out of proportion. And then we find out that she was able to get Ava the internship on the show. And so PJ thanks her for that. Then, let's see what else happens. So that conversation was actually taking place at Mary Jane's office. So then when PJ and Ava got downstairs, and he was putting her in the cab, this fool pulls out a bottle of liquor that she had stolen out of one of the anchor's desk. And so he's looking at her like, well, why did you do this? And so he just over Miss Ava and he takes the bottle from her. And then she was like, oh, come on back to the house and celebrate with me. And he's like, I'm not celebrating with you. He closes the cab door and tells the cab driver to take her, on because he needs to take this liquor back upstairs. And so, PJ has really matured because I'm thinking the old PJ probably would have went back to the townhouse with her or the penthouse or whatever it is and gotten drunk with her and hit it, but he did the mature thing. So back in New York, PJ arrives to watch the game with Mary Jane. She's still at the hotel and he has this package with him and it turns out that he had the father actually cook them some ribs and overnight it to New York for them. And so they tried to FaceTime with their parents, but Miss Helen, she isn't technology savvy and they couldn't get it together, so they end up ending the call. And then we have Niecy, and she's upstairs and she's gotten herself all glammed up and she's taking selfies. And then she decides to get Travion and explain to him, why she has to take the car back. So they go for a ride and they're like sitting in a parking lot and she's talking to him and telling him, everything that happened, as much as she could tell him about, Dante's not going to be in their life and she has to take the car back. But before she does, she wants them to have an opportunity to ride in the car. As she's speeding around the parking lot, we get a dialogue from Niecy explaining her struggles as a single black woman and as a mother, and it ends with, and that's why I got tased. So like I said, it was a good episode. They hit on a lot of strong points that address the needs of, young women, who are going through this thing that Niecy's going through. But that's not what Being Mary Jane was supposed to be about. So what do you guys think? Do you like the direction of the show? I don't know if you guys know this, but we no longer have the really great soundtrack that used to come with the Being Mary Jane show. We don't get Mary Jane writing the little notes and the quotes to herself and sticking them all over the house. And on this episode, we barely even saw Mary Jane. So guys, let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. Rate the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I hope everyone has a really great weekend. Love you guys and thanks for all the support. Until next time. Bye-bye.